very long road. And the reason that all of this sort of came about was that some things happened and I'd like to share with you that led me to this point. And I think a lot of people understand or know about my accident in 2001 at a great event, Day in the Dirt, wonderful event, and I got into a nice little accident there. And that was kind of the start of it all. I had multiple fractures of the skull, compound right wrist, compound right femur, collapsed left lung, perforated spleen, liver. I lost 8 pints of blood, my heart stopped 5 times, and I was comatose for a month, roughly. So that was kind of the start of it all. And directly after, when I came out of that medically induced coma, right away I knew there was something wrong with me. There was a change. And shortly thereafter, as I came in and went through my recovery, it wasn't, things just weren't clicking. It wasn't the same. You know, I wasn't the same person. And as we know, you know, people started to react differently to me. People they couldn't take the Jacob that I was when I was going through all of this. And I quickly learned how to keep my mouth shut, so not to piss off certain people or to upset certain people, and how to hide things, and I hid them very well. You know, I didn't want anyone else leaving my world, so I kept my mouth shut for a very long time, and progressively things got worse. I thought things were getting better. As we know, you know, when you're working, when you're doing your job, when you're playing that sport, when you're out there doing stunts and you're making that money, that sort of keeps you somewhat grounded because you now have distractions. And so I was doing a lot of work, which probably was the worst thing I could have done was go back to work so quickly. But I was determined to let everybody know that I was the athlete, that I was going to be the stuntman, and I was going to continue on doing what it was that I did. So things got, as I said, things got progressively worse. And I'd say around 2010 to 2012, things started to escalate for me. And in 2012, things sort of came to a screeching halt. In my mind, you know, I spent so many nights on the floor crying, wishing that my brain was different, you know, wishing that I didn't have this. And I started to sort of not really give a shit anymore, pardon my words. And I threw caution to the wind and started using drugs, one specifically. I started using cocaine. And the odd thing about the cocaine was at first it was just here and there. And then I realized, this makes me normal. What's going on here? Why am I able to function normally? Why do I feel more normal on the cocaine than not? And unfortunately what happens is that, you know, you get to a point where you want to feel that normalcy every day. You know, you want to just be normal every day. And that got to a point where it was here I was in Los Angeles. This is about 2012, 13. And I had made a decision that I was going to leave town because production had sort of dried up in town. Production started going out elsewhere, a lot of places for the tax incentives. So I told myself that I was either going to be in jail or dead unless I left Los Angeles. So I left Los Angeles and I went out to Louisiana, and that in itself was a whole nother thing. A lot of politics, and you know, politics don't work well when you're trying to put food on your table, you know. And so there was a lot of stuff going on there. There was, you know, mentally I was drained. I could barely function in the fact that I could fake it till I made it, but you know, I started to become reclusive. I started to kind of step away from people, step away from the stunt industry. I mean, even though I was still in Louisiana, I was still working here and there. But really what I did is I went to Louisiana again to get my life back on track. Problem is that your brain never leaves you. The brain's always there, and the problem was still there. And it was dark. It was some of the darkest times of my life. You know, it's hard to describe. But I was out there and I was in a very bad relationship. And that relationship got so bad that we were living in the same apartment, but we were sleeping in separate beds. And one night, I was out in the or I was at the apartment, and we were broken up. I had just gotten a new lease on a one-bedroom apartment in Louisiana. You know, I went out and I signed a new lease for this apartment, and I was getting ready to move in. She and I, we actually had, it was like the one good night that this woman and I had in months. And the next day she left to go see her friends in Alabama. And what happened then was that night I was there in Louisiana, and I was kind of looking around, and I'm just looking at this apartment and all this work that I've done, packed up all my stuff, went out there, and I'm thinking to myself, all for nothing, you know? What the hell did I do all this for? You know, and it was one of those moments, and I said, you know what? Screw this, I'm going to the bar. So I went to the bar, where I drank quite a bit that night. And the next day, as I was on the sofa, this woman, I will say woman, I'll be nice, but this person who did not have any love in her heart, came home and laid into me, as so many people in my life had done. You know, that's the problem, is nobody really understands what's going on, and so it's always you. It's always you're the piece of shit. You know, what the hell's wrong with you? Why are you this? Why are you that? And the whole time trying to figure things out. And this woman came home and she laid into me like she typically did. Called me every name in the book. And it was at that moment that I asked this person, what would it take to get any sort of compassion from her? And I grabbed a pair of scissors and I went down my left wrist 7 times. Okay? As I stood there bleeding out, I then walked down to my car, lit a cigarette, grabbed my knife, looked at my wrist and went, okay, this is bad. Took off my shirt, cut up a strip, tied off, wrapped up my wrist, and lit a cigarette and sat there as the Louisiana Police Department couldn't find me, even though there was a blood trail leading all the way to my vehicle. It was pretty sad. I was just there and I'm like, okay, they'll find me soon enough. But that was rock bottom for me. That was bad, that was dark, but again, still not knowing what is going on, still no answers. You know, doctors who want to say, you're just depressed, doctors who want to say, well, let's put you on this type of medication, it's going to make you happy. It'll make you feel like a slug in the ground, but you'll be happy. And so there was a lot of that. And after Louisiana, I had to get away from that person, and I left. I went to Atlanta, and this was before it kind of blew up. And I went to Atlanta for 7 months, and I was out there, and I was like, you know what? It's not really clicking out here. I miss California, where I was born. You know, my friends, my family. So in 2016, I moved back to California, and I was broke. I figured nobody. I was so depressed that killing myself was a thought that I had every single day. And this is not, again, I wasn't this person, that's not who I was or who I wanted to be. And I remember I was living with my buddy Dan, who was renting me out his room, good friend renting me out his room, and I'm living with Dan, and I'm trying to do the dating thing. I'm trying to do this whole dating thing. I'm trying to get back into dating, because here I am, I'm back in California, and all right, I swear I'm gonna find somebody. And so I go on the dating apps, and there I am, and I'm doing the swiping and whatnot. And I met a girl, and that woman is now my wife. 1 week after we met, a good friend of mine, Greg Anthony, Greg had been wanting me to watch this movie for a long time, because Greg spent a lot of time around me, and he wanted me to watch this movie. He said, Jake, you gotta watch this movie, you gotta see this movie. Concussion, you gotta watch it. You gotta see it. And there was a reason he wanted me to see it, because he had seen what he had seen. And so 1 week after I meet my now wife at a restaurant in Burbank, I say to her, I say, hey, my buddy Greg wants me to watch this movie Concussion, that I kind of put off, and I wasn't really thinking much about it. And I saw, we sat down and we watched that movie, and it was Niagara Falls coming out of my eyes, because it was play for play, the rage, the anger, the memory loss, the battling component of thoughts not being able to carry out any tasks fully, starting a task and ending it because I'm so all over the place, and then I have 5 or 6 or 7 things going on and I can't finish them. And that was a moment when I watched my wife walk through the door of that restaurant. My first thought was, oh fuck, because I knew at that moment I had to figure out what was going on with this, or I was not going to have a chance with that moment. So then I see the movie, and that was, that was gnarly. That sent me into sort of a whirlwind of research and making phone calls and trying to just figure out what was going on, and calling doctors, so on and so forth. And in my search, I came across a website called stopcte.org, where I read a story about a young man by the name of Patrick Risha. Patrick's story was almost identical to mine in so many ways, and it really hit home. And I contacted Karen, Patrick's mother, who started StopCTE.org, and next thing you know, Karen and I are speaking, and she's putting me in directions and making phone calls for me, and just really being there for me, being someone to talk to that actually knew what was going on, because unless you really deal with it, you don't quite know what's going on. There are a lot of people out there that say they know and they don't know, and what the impact that it has on the people around you. After I saw that movie, I had a moment. I don't know when that moment was, but the moment was, oh my God, it all makes perfect sense now. Everything. The depression, the anger, the violence, the pills, the rage, the drugs, the alcohol. God bless my family, my father and my mother. I love them both very much. But growing up in a household in the 80s, 70s, 80s, like many of us did, you saw different things, and it was a little bit different back then. It was kind of like the Wild West, and a lot of stuff happened, but I never quite understood until this moment why I saw all the things I saw throughout our industry. And not only did this disease, these injuries almost take my life, but it damn near almost ruined some friendships. And I've seen too many people go through divorces, families separated, people who have lost their homes, people who have, tried everything they can to try to cope and fill the void, and I've seen a lot of disaster happen. And I just got to a point where I didn't want to see disaster happen anymore. I didn't want anybody else to have to go through what I and other people had been going through. It was about 2014, 15, that I did a couple shows, and I hit my head real hard in those moments. It was a director who wanted to go again. That looked great. Can we just, we're gonna go again, okay? Take 3. Okay, that looked great. We're just gonna change one thing. No, what you're doing is you're focusing on the dialogue, and you don't really care about the stuff, but that's okay. So, take 5. Hey, can we just change this one thing? Yeah. And take 5 was the one that was the, it was a really bad hit. And not only is it concerning now, from all the hits, but it was concerning to me to be sent home as well, being looked at and being sent home to drive home. That's and that was that's one of the that's happened a couple times to me on set, and it's not, you know, it shouldn't happen that way. And that'll go in, we'll go into, you know, concussion protocol and whatnot, and thoughts on that, but it got to the point where I didn't want to see anybody else suffer. And, you know, I met Karen, I met Doug, and they've been amazing to me. Daniel Carcillo here, this young man, this awesome dude right here, he's been with me as well. We've been messaging back and forth. I used to watch the guy on television. I was always, you know, if he was on the opposite team, if he wasn't playing for the Kings, it was like, here comes that Carcillo guy, damn it. But then he joined the Kings, and it was like, yeah, and I got to go, and I got to watch and root for him. And he's got some amazing stuff, you know, and that he's going to share with you. It's sad to me that we do not have a concussion protocol. It's sad to me that so many people spent years of being tough. You got to be tough, and you got to keep hitting the ground. Hey, if you can get up and walk, guess what? You can do take 2, 3, 4, 8, 12. And that was kind of the thing. You know, you cowboy up and you go. And that's done a lot of damage, you know, to a lot of people. And it's, you know, it's just something that thank God, I think we're moving out of that stage in our life, or in our careers, or in the industry. I think we're moving out of that you know, go get them kind of attaboy attitude. But you know, it was hard watching you know, some guys go through some things, and some gals go through some things, families go through things, and I just don't want anyone to have to go through that again. And I'm hoping to, with the support of everybody, and I thank all of you for being here, with the support of everybody, we can help make a change to our industry, because it desperately needs it. Right now, it's all about recovery. I'm still mid-recovery. You know, Daniel's just got some amazing resources, and I've sort of tapped into the unknown psychedelic world of microdosing mushrooms, which has helped. I also did ketamine infusions, which helped to a certain extent, though. But that being said, I want to go ahead and introduce Andy Armstrong, and Andy's going to talk with us about our industry.